All right, I just posted on Moodle an assignment called the Internet Credibility Assignment, Internet Credibility Exercise, I guess I called it. Um, it's a 4-page document. The first 3 pages discuss how you might assess the credibility of information that you find on the internet. And then on page 4 is a brief exercise. Shouldn't take you more than half an hour, 45 minutes. Um, but as I explain in the instructions, it's something that you need to earn a check mark or a check plus in order to complete the class, to pass the class. And it's not a challenging exercise, but it is something that I want everybody to demonstrate that they can do adequately. Right? So it's best to do it right the first time, get it right the first time. If you get a check minus instead of a check or a check plus, then you'll have to do it again with different websites. I'll give you 3 new websites to do it with. Anyway, the due date is next week, next Tuesday. Um, or I think that's what I posted, but you can see on the Moodle site. So if you wanted to look at the exercise while I'm talking to you, you could print it out or bring it up on your screen or something like that. Pause the video and do that, and then we could talk about it. So, everybody knows that what's posted on the internet is not necessarily good information, but my impression is that a lot of people do trust stuff they find on the internet unless you ask them, should you trust that? And then they'll say, oh, no, of course not. I mean, I'm very skeptical. But um, their first reaction is, if they're looking for information, they'll do a Google search, and the first or second site that comes up, they'll open it up, and that'll be their information. It's worth being a little more cautious than that. As you know, anybody's little brother can post something on the internet, and sometimes people are, posting information they know is wrong. I don't think that happens that often, but it does happen. Or information that, either they're trying to deceive you by telling you a lie, or they're just playing a prank. That happens as well. But most often, what we mean by bad information on the internet is just that it's kind of dumb. It's general. It's not very deep. It's probably made up of, ideas that are just sort of sloppy, cut and paste from other websites. It's nothing original. There's good information on the internet too, and that's what you want to find, right? Just like anything else, there's some very good and a lot of mediocre and bad, right? Um, so, it's great that we're drowning in information these days with the internet. It's mostly good. It's obviously got its problems, but one of the problems for a researcher, you would think that more information would be great for a researcher, but you end up with the needle in the haystack problem. You have so much information, it's hard to find, the good information that you want, right? So this exercise is designed to give you some practice in thinking about the quality of the information that you're seeing. I have the exercise broken down, the explanation part of the exercise broken down into 2 parts. The first asks you to assess the credibility of exercises by looking at external evidence. That means evidence that's kind of around the website or around the document. The second part, you're looking at internal evidence. You're actually looking at the article or whatever it is that's written on that document, right? So the first, what are they? I have 7 criteria considering the external factors and 6 criteria considering internal factors, and we'll talk about those. So, okay, before you even look at what the document is claiming, you can look for, who the author is. That's important information. That's a key thing. Who is it that's telling you something, right? If you're talking about credibility, a lot of this stuff is the same as what I said about print sources, books and periodicals. Something's more credible or reliable if it's coming from somebody that you know and trust, or from somebody that has the approval or trust of somebody that you know and trust, right? So I think I gave you the example of somebody trying to give you a candy bar. If it's a stranger, you wouldn't take it. If it was your best friend's cousin, and they were hanging out together, then you feel safe about it. Same thing with information. The more research you do, the more you'll come to know certain writers or researchers or certain organizations or certain websites, certain publishers, and you can begin to trust them for that reason. But even as a beginner, you can identify who the author is, and the author might be a person or it might be an organization. If it's just the website of an organization, it might be, the American Cancer Society might be who the so-called author is. You look at the college's webpage. There's not an author's name listed because probably a bunch of people wrote different parts of it. So in that case, the source is not a particular person, but it's the organization, Henry Ford College. All right. So where do you find the author's name? Well, often, if it's a website that wants to be taken seriously, it'll give you the author's name either at the beginning or at the end of the document. Sometimes you have to look at an information bar at the top, and it'll say, about us or something like that, and you can open it up and find out about the organization that way. Sometimes information, is presented without an author's name, and what you can do is maybe cut and paste the first line of the document into a Google search and see whether it is actually came from another site and was maybe just cut and pasted into the site you're looking at. In that case, it's, you can find the author, but you also have to be a little suspicious about information that was just cut and pasted. So just finding the author's name or the name of the organization that's sponsoring a website doesn't tell you anything. If I just say, oh, I've found out that it's, Charles Webster is the author. Well, that doesn't tell us anything because we don't know who he is. Right? You have to know, finding the name is just, unless it is somebody that you know, finding the name is just one step towards finding out about, that person's credibility, right? What are their credentials? We talked about that in the last video. What degree do they have? What kind of a degree in what field, from what school, and that can give you a sense of what the person's expertise is. What have they done since their education? Where do they work? What institution, what company do they work for? What do they do there? Have they published other things, etc.? All right. Number 3, the web extension. I think a lot of people believe that everything is a .com. .com, I don't know if you know, but it means commercial. .com, commercial. Any .com site is in one way or another set up to make money. Either they're selling you something or they have advertisements that allow them to make money whenever you look at their site. And so that kind of a site, the fact that there's a profit motive can probably it can lower the credibility. Um, but you have to think about what is it that how is it they're trying to make money, and is it by convincing me that this information is true, or you know are they posting ads? Is there any motive? Is there any profit motive for this information to be distorted? So many people have .com addresses that they've got other ones like .biz for business and .net, .net. As I understand it, all of those are about the same. They're commercial sites. Now, if you have .org, that's a nonprofit organization, and that's not a commercial site. Those organizations don't exist to make money. They exist to support some cause or other, right? So just like a .com site, their credibility can be all right or not all right. Except I think .org's nonprofit organizations either have much higher credibility or much lower credibility because they're organizations that have an agenda. They have some cause that they're fighting for. Then there's the strong potential for the information to be distorted by their beliefs. Something like the National Rifle Association, that's a .org, and their agenda is to defend gun rights, and it's going to lead them to distort the information they post. They're never going to post something that's balanced in the gun debate. Same thing with PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. They're never going to talk about the acceptability of eating meat or wearing fur. So certain organizations have a strong agenda. Other nonprofit organizations, like I mentioned the American Cancer Society, other nonprofits like that are perfectly respectable. Their agenda, if you want to call it that, is to provide factual information and support. Like if you had cancer and you went to the American Cancer Society website, you can trust that information because they want what you want, which is to understand cancer and how to live with it or defeat it. So be thoughtful when considering .com or .org sites. Be thoughtful when you're considering any site. But the .gov, .gov, that's the American federal government, U.S. federal government, not state governments, but federal government. And U.S. government websites are generally considered credible because there's lots of agencies that produce lots of information. If you're looking for information about the American population, the U.S. Census Bureau, of course they're only human and they're not perfect, but there's not going to be any better information about how many people of what kind live in what city, etc. If you're looking for crime statistics, the FBI or the Justice Department websites are going to be the best information available. And we live in an era when people are suspicious about government. Some people are, but there are most of the government workers are people who went into they went into public health or criminal justice or whatever because they're interested in that field and they want to do well. Somebody's a statistician and they go in, they work for the census. they don't want to go in there and devote their lives to distorted information. They want to do a professional job. So .gov sites are usually pretty respectable, credible. .edu sites are university sponsored websites, and those are usually, what you find there can be fairly credible, because often you have researchers who are posting results of their research, but it's worth looking into the credentials of the person that has posted. It might be a student, in which case the credibility would probably be lower, or it might be a professor, and what's the prestige of the school? What's the credibility of the school? That also carries some significance. All right, number 4, date of publication. Newer information is usually better, right? So you got to think about whether it's the kind of information that would have changed. Like if you're talking about, how many people died on September 11th, well, there's no need to be updating that that information because it's a done deal, right? If if you're talking about coronavirus research, well, Tuesday is better than Friday, right? I mean, something that's right now is more authoritative than something from before. So, again, you find dates by looking either at the top or the bottom of a document, and credible sites want you to know when something was posted, and they want you to know who the author is, and they will give you the author's credentials and so forth. All right, number 5. Again, this is all external. This is before you actually get into reading the document. What is the presentation of the document? Does it look flashy and colorful, and is it trying to be entertaining? You know the word eye candy, the phrase eye candy. If something is designed just to sort of be fun just to look at, has moving images and colorful, silly or sexy images, serious people don't usually want their information to be presented that way because then it's not taken seriously. Um, my son is trying to stomp on the floor so he could be on the video. So he's achieved his goal. So sometimes websites will have links to other information, and sometimes that can be a clue about their credibility. You can have if the links are to reputable websites or reputable sources, that's a good sign. That means that the person who's posted on this website knows who the reputable sources are. Better still, if you go to those reputable sources and those sources have a link back to the document that you're looking at, that's like an endorsement. That's good. If the Census Bureau links back to this, this researcher's page, something like that, that'd be impressive. Sometimes you see a document that was actually published in paper form. Originally it was in a journal or a newspaper or magazine or something like that. And then you can just shift to your what you know about assessing documents that are published in paper form. If it's published in a newspaper, well, how do you assess the credibility of a newspaper? The big city papers are more credible than the little town papers. Why is that? Big cities have more subscribers, therefore they have more money, therefore they can hire the best writers. And so, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Chicago Tribune, Detroit News and Free Press, LA Times, Dallas Morning News, all the big city, big newspapers are the most credible ones. Okay, now looking at internal evidence, actually reading the document and seeing what's written in it. Is it seem like it's carefully done? Does the person, does the way, does the writing seem like it's intelligent? Writing often reveals somebody's intelligence, and if something is poorly written, often that means the person isn't all that smart. If the person isn't all that smart, then there's a lower chance that they know what they're talking about. Right? As I said before, a lot of information, most bad information, quote unquote bad information on the internet, is not necessarily wrong. It's just lame. It's just simple and not very informative, not very well thought out, often just sort of kind of lazily copied and pasted from other sources. Um, Number 9, consider the author's motives. Right. Again, the different kinds of extensions, web extensions like a .com or .org, .gov, .edu, give you a clue to the motives. But then you also just have to sort of think it through. Why are they posting this information? And how might that, motivate them to um, give accurate information or to, manipulate you through distorted information, something like that. Number 10, the tone of the document. Um, if if a source wants to be taken seriously, then they're going to have a formal, business-like tone, professional tone. There's lots of stuff on the internet though that's usually, like a .com site. It'll try to be jokey and perky and upbeat and happy and seem like it's trying to make you feel good or entertain you. Other things are, written by people who are um, angry and seem like they're paranoid and they believe that, everything is a conspiracy and so forth. Well, then you got to be skeptical of that. Right? The tone of the document can be an important clue for you. If the author seems like they're talking to you as though you're another professional or researcher, then that's a good thing. If they're talking to you kind of in simplistic terms, like you're just a member of the general public, that tells you something too. So, again, the more credible information is the stuff that's looks like it's being exchanged between experts. Number 11, bias. Um, is there any bias? Does it seem like this document is the author interested in finding out what's true, or is the author interested in winning an argument? Might sound like those are the same things, but there's a key difference. Somebody who wants to get at the truth is willing to consider whether they're wrong or not. Right? They want to be fair. They want to examine all possibilities. Number 12, thinking about the sources that a website talks about. Do they have a works cited page? Do they have links? Do they just refer to other sources? What are the quality of those sources, if you're able to tell? And finally, how thoroughly or how well do they document their sources? Does it even have, a works cited page or links or anything like that? Okay, so on page 4, I have 3 websites, 3 web addresses, and they're all on a related topic. And I'd like you to go there and to assess the credibility of each of those. So there's 2 parts here. One is for each of these 3 websites, give a ranking from 1 to 10. 1 meaning low credibility. You wouldn't trust it at all. 10 meaning, wow, there probably isn't anything more credible than this for this particular topic. Where from 1 to 10 would you rank each of these? And there's not one right answer, but there's generally, certain things can't get a 8, 9, or a 10, and certain other things can't be given a 1, 2, or a 3. There's kind of a ballpark. I'm looking for you to kind of be in the ballpark. That's number one, just giving a ranking 1 to 10, or not a ranking, a rating 1 to 10. Number two, I want you to write a little bit, like, a brief paragraph, something like that, several sentences in which you explain why you gave it that ranking. The rest of the document has these 13 criteria to consider in answering these questions. I don't want you to have to go through 13 different things and talk about each of them, but you should talk about whichever of those are the most important. And again, that'll be part of how I evaluate what you do. Are you recognizing which criteria are important? Does the publication date matter in this case? Does the fact that it's a .gov matter? The fact that it has a lot of ads, does that really matter in this particular case, etc. Okay, I believe that's it. The next stage for our class is to have individual conferences, and I'll talk to you about that in an email that I'm going to send to you. I should say that my plan, now that we're 2 or 3 weeks into it, seems like this might go better if I posted everything for the week on a particular day so you can rely on it. And maybe I'll aim for Saturday this weekend. I'll have everything posted for the next week. So then by Sunday you should be able to get on and reliably know that the information for the week will all be posted and not like a little bit one day and a little bit another, right? I'm learning about what is likely to work as I'm going along with, I've never, as I said before, I've never done online teaching before. All right, so the next thing I will probably, next time you'll hear my voice will probably be when we're having individual conferences. And again, I'll set that up in an email that I'm going to send you. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye.